Formulas, Functions, and Formatting. This is Excel Chapter 2, and it's located in the ebook on the course page. And you can look for pages EX58 and onwards, so EX58 and onwards, you'll find Formulas, Functions, and Formatting. In this worksheet, you're going to learn how to use flash fill, enter formulas using your keyboard, enter formulas using point mode, apply the max, min, and average functions, verify a formula using range finder, apply a theme to a workbook, apply a date format to a cell or range, add conditional formatting to cells, change column width and row height, check the spelling on a worksheet, change margins and headers in page layout view, and preview and print versions and sections of a worksheet. Now, the Excel spreadsheet that we're about to create should come out looking pretty much like this when we're done with it. It's Olivia's art supply salary report. Now, to make it a lot easier on you and to speed up the process of entering the data, I have taken the liberty of posting this worksheet in its incomplete form. So if you head to the course page, you will find Olivia's art supply salary report, and this is how it's going to be, and this is where we're going to pick up in this video. So let's begin. Notice that the title and subtitles and all of the headings are already inserted, including most of the data, but we're missing a few items which will be inserted as we go along in this video. Now here's a point of information. When entering data into a cell, did you know that you can wrap text in a cell? Meaning, if you have a long text entry, like a whole paragraph, you can actually instruct Excel to wrap the text in the cell. While typing, you can use these shortcut keys. So for example, Alt and the Enter key together, Alt and Enter. And you'll notice in the cell, it has shifted down to the next line. You can proceed to type the additional text on the next line. And it means that paragraphs of text can actually be in a single cell. Alt and Enter are the shortcut keys used to wrap text. Now, in our case, the data has already been entered, and some of these items need to be wrapped after the fact that they've been typed. So in this case, for example, I'm highlighting A3 to K3. If you look in the alignment group on the Home tab, the wrap text option is also there. So you can use this option even after you would have typed the data. So Alt and Enter while typing will wrap the text, or in the alignment group on the Home tab, the wrap text option is also available. Now let's deal with the email address column, column B. There's a feature in Excel that is going to help us to automatically fill in the email addresses even after we simply entered only 2 of them. It's going to pick up the pattern. We're going to click the option for flash fill, and it should fill in the remaining options. So it means we must first start typing the first 2 email addresses so the software can pick up the pattern. So here goes, jbennett@email.com, and we'll enter the next one, mfred@email.com. Now the software knows that these 2 items are email addresses. Notice it has already color-coded them and formatted them as hyperlinks. So how do we get the flash fill to work? We're going to go to the Data tab. We're going to go to the Data tab. And in the Data Tools option, you'll notice there is a flash fill button. And when you click on it, the software picks up the pattern and has filled in all of the other spaces with the automatic email Now the problem is it has filled it in where we don't need it to be. So we must delete them from B1 and B2, as well as in the total down to average cells. We only want the software to fill in where the names are. So the flash fill option is on the data tab in the data tools group. And remember what flash fill does? It will look for a pattern in the data and automatically fill or format data in the remaining cells. But as you see, it works a little too good and it has filled in where data does not belong. So we would simply remove those. Now we're going to be entering some formulas. We're going to enter formulas for gross pay, federal tax, state tax, tax percent, and net pay. Let's start with gross pay. Now when you're entering formulas, it is important to insert the equal sign. You may have learned this from chapter 1 before you begin to put your formulas in. But we're going to show you different methods in which you can put your formulas in. And one of the easiest ways is to simply type it all in. Now our first formula, gross pay, is equal to the hours worked times the hourly pay rate, which means the hours worked should be multiplied by the hourly pay rate. So in our first method, we simply type equal, and the hours worked is in cell D4. We type D4, and we multiply it, that's the asterisk, by the value that is in cell E4. We type E4, and we press enter, and the resulting value, 1,268.938, is the answer. So that's method 1, simply typing it all in. Let's look at method number 2. For method 2, yes, we still have to type equal, and in this case the formula reads 0.22 times open bracket gross pay minus the dependents times 24.32 equal 0.22 multiplied by, that's the asterisk, with an open bracket. And here's method 2. You can use your mouse, and they call this point mode. Use your mouse and go across to click in the cell that contains the value that you need. So the cell that contains the gross pay is in cell F4. So I'm going to click in F4 and the formula should pick up my value. The formula continues to read minus the dependents, and we can go ahead and click in the dependents column, in the dependents cell, multiplying that times 24.32, and we can close the bracket. And this is the formula. 0 equals 0.22 times open bracket F4 minus C4 times 24.32. And we use point mode, meaning we clicked in the cell and the formula picked up the cell values. And the resulting value is 268.4655. Let's try another method. Method number 3. To calculate the state tax, equal. State tax is equal to 0.04 times the gross pay. So what is the alternative to the two other methods? You can use your arrow keys, yes, the arrow keys on your keyboard, to go across to the cell to pick up the cell reference. So gross pay is in cell F4. I'm going to use my left arrow key to go across to F4, and the software will pick up the resulting cell reference. So the formula should read equals 0.04 times F4. And the value or the result is 50.7575. So you've seen 3 methods so far. In the first method, for calculating the gross pay, you simply typed in the entire formula. To calculate the federal tax, you used point mode. Point mode meaning you use your mouse to click in the cell, so it picks up the cell reference, that the formula picks up the cell reference. By the time you got to method number 3, you were able to use your arrow keys to go across to select the cell reference in your formula. Now, apart from these three main methods, if there are any others, we'll discover them sometime in the future. There aren't many other options in terms of putting formulas in. So for the last two, we'll simply use our preferred method. So you may have a choice as to which one you prefer to use. So let's calculate the tax percent. The tax percent is equal to, open bracket, the federal tax. So I'm using point mode. The federal tax, which is added to the state tax, and they close the bracket. Then they divide all of that, and the division symbol is the forward slash. They divide all of it by the gross pay, which is in F4. So the formula reads equal, open bracket, G4 plus H4, close bracket, forward slash for the division sign, F4. The resulting value is 0.251567. Then the final formula is the net pay. This is equal to the gross pay. I'm using point mode again, the gross pay, and you subtract from it, and we put an open bracket, the federal tax, which is in G4, which has been added to the state tax, which is in H4, and then we close the bracket. So this formula for net pay reads equal F4 minus, open bracket, G4 plus H4, close bracket. The resulting value is 949.7146. Now that we've entered all of these formulas, we're simply going to select all five, so F4 across to J4, and using the single fill handle attached to the selection, we're going to copy the formulas down. Now, we were mentioning that Excel has different mathematical operators. I pointed out the asterisk as the multiplication symbol and the forward slash as the division symbol. Now, for those of you who are aware of the rule, for those calculating mathematics, would have been taught probably the BOMTAS rule, or there's an alternative BEMDAS, or some other variation to that, where the software, where in this case Excel, just as how you would have done in math, would deal with the brackets first, then over exponent, multiplication, division, addition, and finally subtraction. Those rules apply to Excel too. Now let's move on to inserting totals. The total row, we're going to use the sum function to apply totals to the total row. So not all of them are receiving totals. We're going to have totals in at least 5 to 6 different cells in the total row, row number 13. And we're going to do them all in one go. So remember, you're going to have to hold the control key. So I'm selecting here D13. Then I'm going to hold down the control key. I need F, G, and H13. Skip I and go over to J13. All of these, we'll be using the AutoSum button to give us a total. There is a missing total, and that's the tax percent. And we're only doing this differently because they want to repeat the formula that was used in I12 down in I13, but they didn't do it before because you cannot calculate on empty cells. Now that there are values in the cells in the total row, we can go ahead and go up to I12 and use the fill handle and copy the formula from I12 down to I13. Now you're supposed to get an error. If you notice, there's a little green tag attached to the top left corner of the cell. And if you click on the caution sign there, it says inconsistent formula. And that is true because all of the cells in that row have been using the AutoSum function. And this one is definitely different because if you check the formula bar, you can see what the formula reads. So if you want the software to ignore it, then we ignore it. Now to the functions. We have three functions to calculate: the highest, lowest, and average values. There are 5 different methods for inserting functions, 3 of which you will see being used in this worksheet, and the other 2, I'll mention them afterwards. So let's determine what the highest value is, and the function being used there is called the max function. We want to calculate the highest value for the dependence. So the active cell should be C14. And here's method number 1. It's probably one of the longest methods you will use. To insert the max function using method number 1, we're going to click on the insert function box or the insert function button that's located next to your formula bar. And you will see that it's picking up the most recently used formulas, and max should be in the list. So we're going to click on max, then we're going to click on OK. Now in this window, I'm going to pull it across just a little bit. In this window, it's picking up certain values that not necessarily what we desire. It's picking up C4 to C13. Now C13 is actually blank. So what you can do is remove the 3 from C13 and put a 2 there so it reads C12. Or you can hide the rest of the window or collapse the window. Go ahead and select what you want, meaning you'll probably have to delete what's there. Select what you want, C4 to C12, and expand the window again and click on OK. So you notice in the window before I close it, it already picks up what the resulting answer should be. So that the maximum of the dependence is 3. Let's look at method number 2. We're going to calculate the min, which is the lowest value. To calculate the min, we're going to go, we're still on the Home tab, to the arrow that's sitting beside the AutoSum button. And you will notice there is min in the list. We're going to click on min. And this is doing something definitely different from method number 1. This software is assuming that you want to calculate the min of C14, but this is not what you want. You can go ahead and select C4 to C12 and hit enter, and the resulting value is 0 because the lowest number of dependents is 0. Let's look at method number 3. Method 3. In method 3, you can simply start typing the equal sign and the beginning letters of the function which you wish to use. So in this case, we want to use the average function. So I'm going to begin typing equal AV, and you notice there is a list, and this list has a name. It's called the Formula Autocomplete List. Formula Autocomplete List. And to use this list, we're going to double click on average from the list. And it's now waiting for us to put in what is referred to as arguments, or the range of values that the software will use to pick up the calculation for the average. So we're going to highlight C4 to C12, and the software will fill in the ending closing bracket and hit enter, and the average is 1.22, a lot of 2's going down there. So that's method 3. So let's recap. To insert the max function, you had used the insert function button, and then you would have chosen max from the list and proceeded to indicate the cell range. By the time you got to method number 2, you had used the arrow key beside the AutoSum button, and we selected min from the list and proceeded to do likewise, selecting C4 to C12. Method 3 saw you type in equal AV, which is the beginning letters of the average function, and this list called the formula autocomplete list shows up, and you would have double clicked average in the list and proceeded to select the right range. So what is method number 4? If you go to the formulas tab, you'll find that all of the functions, including the insert function button, including the others, they're all listed on the formulas tab. So you can go right ahead and select the one that you need. Method number 5. Did you know that when you type the equal sign in a cell, the name box converts into a list of functions? So check your name box, and you have all the functions, including the option to go get more functions listed right there for you. Now that we've completed all the functions, we're going to copy them across to the adjacent cells. So we're highlighting C14 to C16. Then we're going to drag using the fill handle up to column J, because we're not going across to the dates. And it will fill in all of the remaining values in the remaining columns. Now, with the exception of one, we're going to delete this particular value in I16. We're removing the value in I16. Apparently, mathematically, the average of a percentage is invalid. It makes no sense to have an average of a percentage. So because that value is not worth having there, we're going to remove it. Now we're going to continue to format this worksheet to make it look a little bit more interesting. And before we format the worksheet, let's just mention a feature in Excel, and this feature is called the Range Finder. Range Finder checks which cells are referenced in a formula assigned to an active cell. And to use Range Finder, all you have to do is double click in a cell that contains a formula, and you can see that it picks up the color code and everything that you would have initially put in when you were inserting your formulas. So that's Range Finder. Double click in any cell that contains the formula, and you will see the formula in your cell, and you can make your adjustments as you go along. So let's format the worksheet. The first thing we're going to do is change the theme of the worksheet. So sometimes companies might want their document to have a particular appearance. You know, the figures might look different. They might want the figures to look different, or the labels and so on, or the color scheme to change. So on the page layout tab is the themes button. And the theme we're looking for is the ion theme. But simply pointing to the others, you'll see the differences in terms of how the figures and the color scheme is going to show differently when we start to apply the colors as well. Okay, so it's the ion theme. Now the title and the subtitle, as you should know, we're going to merge and center these. So A1 to K1, back to the home tab. We're going to use the merge and center button there, and A2 to K2, merge and center. Now we're going to apply to both A1 and A2 a cell style, and these are the cell styles. A cell style called title, with the exception of the fact that the subtitle, salary report, is going to be decreased slightly. So we're going to use this button called the decrease font size button. We're just going to click it once. So the two labels aren't the same size. One is just slightly smaller. Still working on A1 and A2. We're going to apply a background color to the cells, and applying a background color, we're going to use this fill color button. And here's the color that we want to apply. It's called Blue Gray Accent 5 Lighter 60%. So remember, the color scheme has changed since we have applied the ion theme. So Blue Gray Accent 5 Lighter 60%. So you notice the color has changed. Still working on A1 and A2. We're going to apply what's called a border. And the border we're looking for is called the thick outside border. Thick outside borders. And what you should find is a heavy line should surround the selection. Now let's look at the headings. A3 to K3, A3 to K3. We're going to center those, as well as apply a style called heading 3. So let's go to the cell styles button and apply the heading 3 style. So you notice it gets a red line under the labels or the headings. Let's go to the total row. A13 to K13, cell styles button, total. For emphasis, we're bolding these values. So apply bold to A14, 15, and 16 as we proceed to format some more information on this worksheet. The dates. K4 to K12. We would like to change the date format so that it has 2 digits in the year instead of 4. Now, no, we would not go about going and manually doing this. We're going to let the software adjust them for us. So how do we get the software to change up the format in which the date appears? We're going to go to the dialog box launcher of the number group, and notice the software knows that it has been working with a date. Well, we can tell it and look at all the other date formats. Some of them even include time. We're going to use the 5th one down in the list, which has 2 digits in the year instead of 4. And then we can click on OK. So it has formatted it according to our desire. For readability, it's wise to center the figures in the dependence column. So we're going to select C4 to C16 and center those values. To give the worksheet a more professional look, we're going to apply dollar signs and, of course, straighten or align the other items in the cells. So the dollar sign that we're going to apply is the fixed dollar sign, and we're going to get it using the accounting number format button. On all the other values, except for those items in the tax percent column, which we'll get to, will be given the comma style, and some of these values below will be given another style. So let's deal with the style, the fixed dollar sign, which the accounting number format will give. And here are the values that will get the fixed dollar sign. So we're going to apply from E4 to G4 to H4, sorry. Hold the control key and go over to J4. And likewise, still holding control, we're going down to F13 to H13, skip I and go to J13, and we're going to click the accounting number format button for those. Remember, we're skipping I because I gets a style by itself. It is the percent style. For the values that are not touched in the main body of the sheet, which are E5 to H12, hold the control key and go J5 to J12. Those are going to get the comma style. So we're only given the dollar symbol to the first column and the total row. the figures in column D, D4 to D16, we're going to apply the comma style to those two because they need some alignment. So you'll notice the extra decimal places are placed there. The other dollar symbol, which we will apply, is called the currency style or the floating dollar sign. And we're going to apply those to this section that has highest, lowest, and average values. So highlight E14 to H16. Remember, we're skipping I. We're coming back to I. Hold the control key and go over to J14 to J16. And I'll show you both methods to get there. The longer way to apply the currency style, remember we're looking for a floating dollar sign, is to click on the dialog box launcher for the number group, go to currency, and then select the third negative number style in the list, and then click on OK. Another way to get there, I'm going to undo this, is to go into the number group, and you'll notice where it says general, we can select currency, and it will do a similar effect, except for you don't have a choice as to what happens to your negative numbers. But in the first method, you can tell how you can indicate to the software how you want your negative numbers to look. So what of the tax percent column? We're going to select I4 to I15. Remember, there's nothing in 16. And we're going to apply the percent style. And for readability's sake, we're going to add back 2 decimal places. And this is the increase decimal button. We're going to click that twice to place the decimal places, 2 decimal places back on the figures. So we're going to be introducing a relatively new concept. It's called conditional formatting. And here's what conditional formatting is. You can assign any format to a cell, a range of cells, or even an entire workbook conditionally. If the value of the cell changes and no longer meets the specified condition, Excel will simply suppress the formatting. So we're going to apply a condition that will automatically change the background and the font color of certain cells that meet a particular condition. And here's what we're going to apply the condition to. D4 to D12. D4 to D12. So this is the area in which we want the software to apply the condition. Now on your Home tab, we're going to click the Conditional Formatting button. And there are quite a few options. There's highlight cell values and top and bottom values, rules, data bars and color scales and icon sets. We're going to click on New Rule. And there are at least 6 rules here that we can use. You notice there's format all cells based on their values, format only cells that contain, and so on. We're going to be selecting format only cells that contain as our rule. So we have to tell the software now, what should I do with the cells between D4 and D12? And what is the condition and what should happen to the cells when the condition is met? So here's the condition. Format only cells, I'm reading in the lower part of the window. Format only cells with a cell value, so that remains, but there are other options there. A cell value that is greater than, and you notice the other values, greater than 72. So we're going to type the number 72 here. So this is just part of the condition. Excel is going to look through D4 to D12 and it's going to look for cell values that are greater than 72. What should the software do when it finds them? As it is right now, it's going to do nothing. We're going to click on Format. because we want to tell the software to give the font of those values once it finds them, give the font a color of white, and go to the Fill tab and give the background a color of blue-gray. So in the first column of in the first row of the color palette, this is blue-gray. And you notice the sample. And we're going to click on OK and check the preview. The preview window should show what should happen to the values that are greater than 72. And it should apply a blue-gray background color to the cells, and the text should come out white. So when I click on OK, once the values in the selection meet the criteria or meet the condition, then they will get the formatting. Otherwise, everything else is ignored. So what happens if you change the value? So no, let's say this 80 becomes 32. The software automatically has readjusted because this particular item does not meet the condition, but the condition is still set. So if I put back that 80 that was there, the software will readjust again. So this is conditional formatting. Remember, you can instruct the Excel software to apply a desired formatting to certain cells if the cells meet a particular condition which you set. And in this case, our condition was that the values between D4 to D12 that are greater than 72, they should get a white font with a blue-gray background. Now, if you're curious as to if you made a mistake in your rule, you can go back to the conditional formatting button and you go to Manage Rules, and you'll see, well, I think I have to select the area. So let's go back. Select the area, go back to conditional formatting and go to Manage Rules, and it should pick up the rule for you, and you should be able to make an adjustment by clicking Edit Rule and fix the things that you think you need to fix in your condition. Now we're going to move on to changing the column width and row height. So you can change the width and the height of rows, the width of columns and the height of rows. And you may have done so before by using a feature called Best Fit. And Best Fit simply means that once you double click between the boundary that separates a column, simply double clicking, it will adjust automatically to the longest item in the cell, and it removes white space from the column so that everything fits together nicely. So other cells we will be adjusting based on a screen tip or that shows up on the screen while we're dragging. So let's deal with column A, B, and C. Columns A, B, and C. This we'll use Best Fit for. So it means I can double click the boundary separate. It doesn't even matter where I double click because it's in the selection. I'm going to double click, and the software is supposed to automatically adjust to the longest item in each of those selections. Okay, let's look at columns D, E, and I. So you have to use the control key, column D, E, and I'm holding control and I'm clicking on column I. We're going to be looking for a screen tip that's going to give us specific measurements that we need to follow. So I'm clicking and holding down my mouse button, and you notice the screen tip shows width and pixels. We want to adjust these three so that the screen tip reads 7.50. It's a little tricky if you notice, 7.50. I haven't gotten there yet. Okay, or 65 pixels. No, my pixels seem to be a little off. And I believe some of your computers will give you a little hassle with it as well. And I've known some persons to not be able to get these exact measurements at all, no matter what they've tried. Okay, let's try the next set. What about F, G, and J? F, G, hold the control key and go across to J. And we're looking for a screen tip. Once we click and hold, that says 11.00 or 93 pixels. So I got the 11.00, but my pixels are definitely different. Now to the height of rows. To the height of rows. There are two rows that we're going to adjust. Row number 3 and row number 14. Row number 3. So we're pointing between row 3 and row 4. And we're watching the screen tip and we're looking for the screen tip to read 48.00 or 64 pixels. So I'm trying to make my way there. 48.00. My pixels are definitely off. So we're widening the space between the header, the headings, and the title and the subtitle. And for row number 14, we're pointing between the boundary that separates 14 and 15. And we're looking for a screen tip that reads 27.00 or 37 pixels. 27.00. Okay, so I'm not getting 27 exactly. So that's the challenge with these measurements. Okay, let's check the spelling of the worksheet. You'll notice that in Excel, you definitely don't have anything that's flagging down your words. You know, in Word, you had the little greens and red and blue squiggly underlines telling you there's something wrong in your worksheet. There isn't any in Excel. So you'll definitely have to go through, starting from cell number 1, manually. It's on the review tab, going through with the spelling and grammar checker. So you can go ahead and ignore where necessary. So in this case, it's picking up a name, and any other error that you find, it will adjust according to your choice, of course. Okay, we're going to be looking at setting the margins and orientation, including a header in this worksheet. Margins, headers, and orientation of a page. Now going to the page layout tab, we're going to adjust the margins just slightly so that it gets a narrow margin. It means that there's more space on the page when it comes to printing. A narrower margin has more space. Then we're going to apply a header to the worksheet, and we're going to use not the page layout tab but the page layout view button. Look at your status bar, and it will open up the area for adding headers. And imagine that Jane Smith was the person in charge of this worksheet, and she is the chief financial officer. And this will print on the worksheet, but you definitely won't see it once you switch back the view to normal. But it definitely comes out in your printing. So going back to the normal view. Okay, it's coming back out to the normal view. Right, so you notice the header and footer areas are gone once you go back to normal, but you'll see them in the print layout view, or when you're about to print, you'll see those. The other thing we're going to do, still on the page layout tab though, is make an adjustment to the orientation of the page. Once your spreadsheet is definitely wide, it will come out even better on a landscape view. But if you're going to print the worksheet, go to File and go to Print, you'll notice that definitely piece of the worksheet is missing. And we like to get the hire dates onto the worksheet as well. Because if you check page number 2, that's where that column is hanging off on the next page. So how do we get everything to fit? Okay, so here's the easiest way to do that. Where it says no scaling, we're going to click here and select fit sheet on one page. And when we click that, it should make an adjustment to the sheet. And notice now the hire date is in. Now, did you know you can print your worksheet with grid lines and column headings and row headings? Let's go to page setup and go to sheet. And if you check the boxes for grid lines and row and column headings, they're going to appear. And of course, you can take them back off. They might be annoying, but it depends on what you need to do. You should be able to print them with your worksheet. Okay, so since we're not actually printing, here's another thing that you can do. So for example, if I only want to print up to a certain selection on my worksheet, notice I've selected a portion, and I go to File, and I go to Print. It's still showing everything, right? Here's what you can do. You can, instead of Print Active Sheets, you select Print Selection, and that portion of the worksheet alone will print. We're going back to Print Active Sheets, it will print the entire worksheet. There's also a little bit of information about the width of columns and the height of rows. Did you know that you can actually hide a column or hide a row? Maybe there's some sensitive information in your worksheet that you don't want seen. So for example, if I don't want folks to know what the hourly pay rate is, I can hide column E, and how do we hide it? Drag the column all the way down to 0, and column E is hidden. Now, if you, as a casual viewer of the worksheet, if you're not particularly looking at the column headings, you may not notice that E is actually missing, but you're reading the worksheet as it was given to you. Now, how do you unhide it? You notice that there's a double line there between D and F. You can simply double click it or drag it back out to its original width. Finally, displaying and printing the formula version of the worksheet. So far, you've been working with the values version of the worksheet, meaning you've been looking at the results of the formulas that you've entered rather than the actual formulas. Did you know you can display and print the formulas of your worksheet? Here goes. There's a shortcut key. It's Control and the accent mark. Now, if you look above the Tab key on your keyboard, you'll notice there's just to the left of the number 1, there is the accent mark. It has 2 marks on it. It's a tilde and an accent mark below. Control and the accent mark will switch over your entire worksheet to what is referred to as the formulas version. All of the formulas in your worksheet are now visible. How do you get back the other version, which is the values version? Same button, Control and the accent mark. Now, if perchance that you've really forgot how to get that done, there's an option available. Go to the Formulas tab, and you'll notice there is the Show Formulas option, and you notice, if you look closely, the shortcut keys are mentioned. If you click the Show Formulas button, it does the same thing as Control and the accent mark. Now, what's the purpose of this worksheet? The formulas version is useful for debugging a worksheet. What's debugging? Debugging is the process of finding and correcting errors in your worksheet. You can view the printed version, look for the errors in the worksheet, and if you find a mistake, it's probably easier to find it in its printed version, as a matter of fact. Fix your error in your spreadsheet and proceed to get the resulting corrected value. Okay, here is the end of the Olivia's Art Supply salary report. There's quite a bit that has been covered in this video. If you're not sure of what you've seen, please go back to your ebooks. Remember, it's EX58 and onward, formulas, functions, and formatting, and refer to the pages that are mentioned there. Thanks for watching.